Hello everyone, welcome to the online class Energy Conversion Engineering. This is our 11th class. So far we covered many topics related to energy conversion engineering. Now we are going to discuss about our 11th week class. Once again, welcome to online class Energy Conversion Engineering 11th week. This is Dr. Battula Babu. Let's discuss our topic. As you all know, these are the topics which we are covering in the energy conversion engineering topic. So far, we have covered 10 classes from the basics of energy resources, energy conversion, energy storage, and then we covered supercapacitors. Regarding supercapacitors, we have discussed many fundamental issues right from the definition to mechanism, properties, types, testing of supercapacitors, and how to prepare the electrode materials for supercapacitors. We have discussed all these topics in our previous 10 classes. Today's class, we are going to discuss about hurdles in the performance of supercapacitors, particularly cyclic voltammetry. In our last two classes, we have discussed about two characterizing methods. One is EIS, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, and the second one is cyclic voltammetry. In our previous class, cyclic voltammetry, we discussed about the fundamental issues, how to do cyclic voltammetry, what it gives. We discussed some fundamental topics related to cyclic voltammetry. In this class, we have discussed further more detailed measurement of cyclic voltammetry. In our previous class, we have discussed the introduction to cyclic voltammetry. Voltammetry is a sensitive analytic technique that informs us about the thermodynamics and kinetics of electron transfer for a given analyte. Most electron transfers can be understood by thinking about the potential energies of the analyte and the electrons in the electrode. We discussed about the electron transfer between the working electrode and the solvent based on the potential energy. If the potential energy of the electron in electrode is higher, then it will transfer to the analyte molecular orbital. In case if the energy of analyte molecular orbital is more, then it will transfer to the electrode. In both of these cases, Electrons are transferred in order to minimize the potential energy of the total system. And we also discussed about the potentiostat. In order to measure all electrochemical analysis, we need an instrument called potentiostat. The potentiostat is what controls the electrode potential during any electrochemical technique. And also, we need a cell, which is a container where the experiment takes place, is the cell. Usually, we have different shapes of cells to perform electrochemical techniques. Mostly, all of the cells prepared by glass material, and we need to take many precautions before we start the experiment about the cell. We need to maintain the cell as clean as possible. And the next thing is the solvent. The solvent is a common but avoidable source of contamination, as methods of solvent purification are well known. Mostly we used deionized water. And then the important thing is the electrolyte salt. The electrolytic salt allows the passage of current through the solution, and it is essential in preventing charge buildup at the electrodes and the collection of useless data. In order to dissolve in the solution in large, usually at concentrations ranging from 0.1 to 1 molar. Since it is required in such high concentrations, the electrolyte salt must be thoroughly purified, because even a small impurity will destroy the experiment, and the ability of the electrode to interact with the molecule which we are going to study, it has a significant effect of redox behavior of the material. Coming to the electrodes part, in our previous class we have clearly discussed about the electrodes. In most cyclic voltammetry experiments, there are three electrodes, that is working electrode, counter electrode, and reference electrode. The working electrode is where the action happens. The current that passes to or from this electrode is what is recorded by the potentiostat. And it is important to always check whether CVs are reproducible by occasionally collecting the same CV or not. And then the next one is counter electrode. The current that is measured by the potentiostat is actually the current that flows from the working to the counter electrode. Likewise, we have reference electrode, and we discussed in our previous class. Concentration of the electrolyte is very important to measure any analysis related to the cyclic voltammetry. First, the electrolyte salt is dissolved in the solvent of choice, and this solution is used to dissolve a known amount of analyte. This final solution with a known concentration of analyte is then placed in the cell. The concentration of the electrolyte in the solution can be tailored for a high electrolyte concentration ensures that there is minimal solution resistance. We discussed in our classes that the solution has internal resistance, that is impedance. In our previous class, that is electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, we discussed clearly about the solution resistance. So, by increasing the concentration of electrolyte, we can minimize the solution resistance. Nearly all meaningful interpretations of CVs require the knowledge of the solution concentration of the analyte. Analyte concentrations usually range from 0.1 to 10 millimolar, but they can be adjusted according to our needs between 0.5 to 1 millimolar. These are the common concentrations of the electrolyte. After the electrolyte solution prepared, the analyte is added and the resulting solution is placed in the cell. We prepared electrolyte solution separately in a glass vial or beaker. So then we take the required amount of electrolyte in our cell where we are going to do the experiment. And then if the analyte is a gas, spurging the electrolyte solution in the cell for 2 to 20 minutes is sufficient to saturate it. It depends on the analyte form. If it is a volatile solvent, then the gas should be run through the gas purger first in order to pre-saturate the gas and prevent unwanted evaporation. In this class, we are focused mostly on the initial things what should we consider before starting the experiment and the systematic procedure to start the cyclic voltammeter or any technique. So coming to the electrode placement, the working electrode should be suspended in solution so that the active electrode surface is far away from the solution surface and the edges of the cell. We need to place the working electrode properly in the cell to avoid the contact between the contact with electrodes, and also we need to avoid the contact with the walls of the cell so that the working electrode can work well. The reference electrode should be placed close to the working electrode, but it should not block the working electrode surface. The counter electrode can be placed anywhere in the solution. Usually in present days, we have a cell cap with the proper holes so that we can place our three electrodes in a proper place without contact with each other and also without contact to the walls of the cell. Some commercially available cells come with cell caps that have holes to conveniently hold all three electrodes in place. If the cell has more than one compartment, the working electrode and reference electrode are ideally placed in the same compartment, but the reference electrode can be placed in a separate compartment. And this is the cell setup and electrode placement. Electrode placement is very important in order to get correct measurements of CV. Before starting the experiment, cyclic voltammetry, we need to check some preliminary issues. Out of these preliminary issues, two checkings are very important, that is measuring the open circuit potential, and the second one is solution resistance. After connecting the electrodes to the potentiostat using the appropriate leads, we should measure the open circuit potential using the appropriate command on the potentiostat. In some potentiostats, you can directly see the value of open circuit voltage or open circuit potential on the monitor, or in some cases, we need to find by using the software provided by the potentiostat. The open circuit potential or rest potential is the potential of the working electrode when it is placed in solution, and it is determined by the characteristics of the species in solution. Open circuit potential is related to the working electrode and the solution. Whenever we place the working electrode in the electrolyte, we can measure this open circuit potential. But mostly, what is important in measuring the why we are measuring open circuit potential means, while we are conducting the experiment, this open circuit potential must be constant. The open circuit potential should remain constant if it is measured multiple times. Some potentiostats have an option to monitor the open circuit potential over a few minutes. If the measured value is extreme, or sorry, it varies with, if it is varies with the time with respect to time, then there is most likely a connection problem, such as wires are in contact or a bubble in Weicker-Fritt. We already discussed about Weicker-Fritt in reference electrode part in our previous class. So if there is some problem with the cell setup, then only this open circuit potential will vary with respect to time. So we need to check the open circuit potential whether it is remains constant or not before doing the experiment. If we found something that is variation or changes in the open circuit potential, then we need to check the connections or something uh, something not good setup of the cell. So if the measured value is extreme or varies with respect to time, there is most likely a connection problem, such as wires that are in contact, or a bubble on Weicker-Fritt in the reference electrode compartment, or the electrolyte concentration is too low, or the Weicker-Fritt of the electrode may be damaged. So we need to check where the problem is. So open circuit potential is very important in order to start the experiment. And coming to the second one is solution resistance. If an acceptable open circuit potential is measured, one can proceed to measure the solution resistance. So first we need to make sure that the open circuit potential is constant, then we should look at solution resistance. The potentiostat software should be able to perform this experiment. Sometimes the researcher or the user can input the potential at which the solution resistance is measured. Checking the solution resistance may also indicate whether there is a problem with the working electrode or counter electrode connections. Usually, if the resistance of 0, if resistance shows 0, then it indicates the short circuit of wires of the electrodes. In case if the resistance is too high, then we can come to a conclusion that the electrode is not properly connected in the circuit, or if electrode is not in electrolyte solution, or in case if the electrolyte concentration is too low, so then in that cases also we can find high resistance. Low polarity solvents may give high resistance even at the electrolyte salt concentrations of 0.1 molar like that, but this resistance can be lowered by increasing electrolyte concentration. So solution resistance is the intrinsic electrical resistance of the solution between working electrode and the reference electrode. As in most practical cases, the current flows has a resistance associated with it. The electrolyte solution is the same. Charge flows in the form of electrolyte ions in solution, moving towards one electrode to other, and their motion is impeded by the solvent molecules and other molecules in solution. We already discussed this part in our previous class, EIS. So every solution offer some resistance, that is impedance, but at high currents we can compensate this solution resistance because the actual potential of working electrode potential during the cycles. But modern potentiostats can compensate for large solution resistance. So because this is unavoidable, therefore the system or the potentiostat can compensate most of the solution resistance. And one thing is important, that we cannot completely remove the solution resistance, but we can minimize the solution resistance. And solution resistance is actually necessary for proper collection of the CV, but it should be minimized between 2 to 40 ohms is usually acceptable. One way to minimize the solution resistance is limiting the amount of compensating required by the potentiostat is to place the reference electrode and working electrode as much as close to each other without contact, so that we can decrease the, or we can minimize the solution resistance. After preliminary checkups, we need to look at some important parameters, that is solvent window and scan rate. Coming to solvent window, after finding the open circuit potential and compensating for the solution resistance, we can start to find the maximum and minimum potentials that the solvent can experience before the electrolyte or the solvent begins to get reduced or oxidized. Actually, we need to find the maximum and minimum potential of the solvent which it can bear, or so the maximum oxidation and reduction, so that we can fix the solvent window. For this purpose, we need to be cautious that while finding solvent window, because if you apply maximum potential or more potential or very minimum potential, so it will damage the working electrode. So we should be very careful while finding the solvent window, because they are demarcated by a large increase or decrease in current, lead, leads to the direct oxidation or reduction of the solvent or electrolyte, which can leads to the decomposition of the working electrode. So scanning to unnecessarily high or low potentials might lead to a coating on or some chemical modification of the working electrode. So any type of electrode modification during the course of an experiment will decrease electron transfer from the electrode to the solution, which means it can destroy the rate of electron transfer. For this purpose, we need to focus, or we need to setting up an experiment, and it is better to scan over the narrowest possible range of potentials. If you go far high or far below, it may be the working electrode can decompose. Having a narrow potential window also saves time, especially at low scan rates. So finding solvent window is very fundamental and very important to minimize the time and to increase the and to maintain the working electrode safe. And the second one is scan rate. Coming to the scan rate, the scan rate parameter is most often represented with the Greek letter nu. Collecting CVs at various scan rates allows to obtain important information about the analyte, about the working electrode. Most analysis of CVs depend on the assumption that diffusion is the only mode of analyte transport. For the study of freely moving molecules in solution, usually 50 millivolt per second scan rate is very good to estimate the performance of working electrode. If the scan rate is slower, then there is a risk that analyte will be transported or to from the electrode through the process of other than diffusion. Usually diffusion process is the general process that electron can be transported between the analyte and working electrode and the solution electrolyte. But if you select very slow scan rate, some other process can be happen other than diffusion. With a normal sized electrode, the maximum scan rate is approximately 2 volt per second. This is due to the tendency of the double layer charging current to observe the peaks of interest. Double layer formation we already discussed in our previous classes. Double layer charging current is the current that comes from the rearrangement of solution molecules at the electrode electrolyte interface. And the next important parameter is the threshold current. And for this electrochemical software, we can use this threshold current value. In case this current value we need to give to the software, so by the previous experience or from the literature, if the value that is entered for this parameter is too low, that means if we give low threshold current, what will happen is it cannot give the data beyond that threshold current. If the value that is entered for this parameter is too low, the current might hit maximum and no record of any events beyond that maximum will show up in the data file. Here you can see in this figure, the red horizontal line is the threshold current. That is what we have given to the software. So after this point, even though it has the electrochemical process, but it cannot give the data. So that we need to find the threshold current clearly. So familiarity with CVs will aid in approximating this value. When approximating this value for the first time, one should remember that for a 1 electron transfer event, the current increases with increased surface area. So this is what we learned from our previous classes, that the current can increase with increased surface area of the electrode, and also it can increase with the increase of scan rate. Also it can increase with the increased concentration of the analyte. So this current is directly proportional to the surface of the working electrode, and also directly proportional to scan rate, also proportional to concentration of the analyte. After preliminary checkings and the compensating solution resistance, we need to know about the electrochemical reversibility. This is little a tricky topic. It's have a little confusion. So we need to clearly understand the meaning of reversibility. The most common way of characterizing features in the cyclic voltammetry in terms of electrochemical reversibility. Reversibility does not mean something as reversible might suggest that an electron can be added or removed from the redox active molecule, but it does not. Electrochemical reversibility describes the rate of electron transfer. Here just forget about reversibility, the word. Here electrochemical reversibility means the rate of electron transfer. Simply, if the rate of electron transfer is good enough, or if the rate of electron transfer is high, then it can be called, or it can be considered as electrochemical reversibility nature. If the rate of electron transfer is low, then we can call it as irreversibility. Here reversibility means the rate of electron transfer is high. If the rate of electron transfer is low, we can consider it as irreversibility. So it doesn't describe the reversibility means it should come back like that. It describes about the rate of electron transfer. Okay, coming to the reversible electron transfer, what we need to know is, assuming that both the reduced or oxidized forms of the analyte are infinitely stable in a solution, a reversible wave arises when the electron transfer rate is very high. A reversible wave arises when the electron transfer rate is very high. That is what we are defining reversible electron transfer. Remember, a fast rate does not mean that electron transfers between the electrode and analyte at high speed, but you can simply understand electron transfer is easy and occurs frequently whenever an analyte molecule approaches the electrode. The easy electron transfer results in a CV feature. Here you can see the graph. You can see the complete duck-shaped figure. It shows the electrochemical reversibility. So one thing we need to understand that reversibility doesn't means when an electron goes forth and come back. That is not the meaning of reversibility here. But here we need to understand that the reversibility means the rate of electron transfer is high or the electron transfer is easy. Then coming to the irreversible electron transfer, if the electron transfer rate is slow or low, extreme electrode potentials are needed to drive the electron transfer and register current on the potentiostat. If there is an easy of electron transfer, no need to give external potential because it can easily transfer. So that is the reversibility of electron transfer. But what happens in the irreversible electron transfer is the electron transfer is low. So in order to continue the process, we need to apply extreme electrode potentials from the potentiostat so that we can drive the process. This is known as an irreversible electron transfer. In other words, just because all the electrons that leave the electrode and are collected back is not the meaning of electron transfer was reversible. Here it is as simple as if the electron transfer rate is low, it is irreversible. If the electron transfer rate is high, that is reversible. Peak potential and half wave potential. Let's discuss about these two topics. The potential at which the current reaches maximum during an electron transfer event is referred to as peak potential. It can be shortly we can write as capital E suffix P. So the peak potential means while we are applying potential linearly at some value of potential, it will reach to the maximum current and also maximum current and minimum current at certain potentials. So these potentials are called as peak potentials. So what will the information we get from these peak potentials means? We can obtain the information about the process such as the rate of electron transfer, ligand bind constants, or the rate of determining steps of multi-step transformation by measuring how peak potential changes under different conditions. Here you can see clearly the maximum current, that is peak potential, is denoted by EP1, and the peak potential where the minimum current is observed, that can be named as EP2. The peak potentials of reversible waves do not change with scan rate, whereas peak potential of an irreversible wave will shift with higher scan rates. One thing we need to understand that usually peak potentials for reversible waves, that means where or in which process the rate of electron transfer is easy, then we can find no shifting in the peak potential values. But in case of irreversible electron transfer, that means irreversible electron transfer process, that means where the electron transfer is slow or low, there you can observe the change or shift in the peak potential positions with respect to scan rate. Usually by changing scan rate, no shift will be observed in case of fast electron transfer process, that is reversible electron transfer. In case of irreversible electron transfer, or in case of slow rate of electron transfer, in those cases we can find the shift in peak potential positions with respect to scan rate. Sometimes the two peak potentials of a wave are distinguished by referring to the peak that occurs on the negative potential as the cathodic peak, due to the fact that the peak is caused by the reduction of the analyte, and the reductions are associated with cathodes. So we can call these two peaks as one is cathodic peak and one is anodic peak, and where the reduction is happened we can consider it as cathodic peak, and where the oxidation is happened, that means at positive potentials, we can consider it as anodic peak. So simply, for the section of peak potentials, one thing we need to understand that at which potential the current is minimum or maximum, that can be called as peak potential. Might be one is maximum and one is minimum, and it indicates the rate of electron transfer, and it can give some other information about the ligand field constants or the electrochemical transformation we can know by knowing the peak potential values. And most importantly, one thing here from the two figures we can understand that in reversible electron transfer process there is no change in peak potentials with respect to scan rate, but there is shift in the irreversible electron transfer processes. Coming to the half wave potential, in a CV containing a feature that has a forward and reverse wave, regardless of whether it is reversible or irreversible, we can find the average, or in between the two peak potentials we can find the average, that is E1 by 2, E half, that can be called as half wave potential. From the figure you can see there is two peak potentials, EP1 and EP2. That is, EP1 is the potential at which maximum current is observed, and EP2 is the peak potential at which the current is minimum. And in between these two, we can know the half wave potential. So simply, half wave potential defines the potential exactly in the middle of the two peaks. The half wave potential can be seen both in reversible electron transfer and irreversible electron transfer process also. Here you can see the half wave potential that is exactly in between the EP1 and EP2. Similar to peak potential and half wave potential, we have two other parameters, that peak current and half peak potential. Coming to the peak current, the peak current is the current at the maximum or minimum of the CV. Here you can see if the baseline current before the wave is 2 microamperes, then 2 microampere must be the subtracted from the peak current of the wave. Before starting the wave, what is the peak current? So that can be treated as baseline. So if you see the figure in the figure here, IP1, the horizontal line before starting the wave, that can be considered as the baseline. So with respect to baseline, the maximum current is called as the peak current. Non-zero baseline currents are to be expected as it results from the act of changing the electrode potential, but it may also be due to the presence of another wave that occurs at an earlier time in the scan. So here we are seeing two waves related to IP1 and IP2. See, the baseline is different for both, because before IP1, before the first wave, the baseline is different, and before the starting of the second wave, the baseline is different. So we need to consider baseline as the constant value of current before starting the wave. So that is peak current. This phenomenon is due to the diffusion of the analyte and not related to the thermodynamics of the electron transfer. The change in peak current, if you see the two peaks, there is change in peak current. This change in peak current with scan rate can determine whether the electron transfers occurs between electrode and a species in solution. And the peak current can also be used to measure the diffusion coefficient of an analyte. Coming to the second part, half peak potential. The half peak potential is the potential where current is half of the value of the peak current. For example, here we can see in figure IP is the peak current. So with respect to the baseline, the constant current before starting the wave, so that is what we called as peak current. So and the half the value of the peak current can be called as half peak potential. Diffusion limited current, a few hundred millivolts or so after a feature in a CV, the current decreases after hitting the peak and converges to a constant current known as the mass transport or diffusion limited current. In previous slides, we discussed about threshold current. Likewise, here the diffusion limited current means, so after the current decreases after hitting the peak current, so that means if you see the previous figure, after reaches the constant current after the wave, it looks like constant. See here, before starting the wave, we can find the constant current, and even after the wave, the current looks almost constant. So the difference between these two currents before and after the waves, so it can be considered as diffusion limited current. This means that the rate of electron transfer depends on the rate at which analyte can diffuse to or from the electrode. The diffusion limited current can be used to find the diffusion coefficient of the analyte. We all know that more diffusion means the rate of electron transfer will be more. So far in this class, we have discussed about the concentration of electrolyte, how to we prepare, and also we discussed about the cell setup and electrode placement. In that, we clearly mentioned the placement of electrodes. We should place properly. The working electrode should not touch with each other, and also the electrodes should not touch the cell walls. And how should we maintain the distance between working electrode and reference electrode. And we discussed about initial preliminary checkups, that how do we measure open circuit potential and what is the importance of open circuit potential. So we need to measure open circuit potential so that it gives the information about the connections that we made to measure CV or any electrochemical technique. If the open circuit potential varies with respect to time, that means we need to check our connections that we made some wrong. So there are a lot of reasons for the variation in open circuit potential. We need to check all. The problem might be came with improper connections of the wires, or some bubble in Weichorf frit, or the damage of Weichorf frit of reference electrode, counter electrode. Weichorf frit of the reference electrode. So we need to check what is the reason for the variation in open circuit potential, and then we need to know how to compensate the solution resistance. We cannot make zero solution resistance, but we can minimize the solution resistance by increasing the electrolyte concentration. And then we discussed about reversible and irreversible electron transfer, and we clearly understand that reversibility is not the meaning of what the electron transferred from electrode to electrolyte and come back to electrolyte to electrode. That is not the meaning of reversibility here. Here reversibility means the rate of electron transfer. How is the rate of electron transfer? If the rate of electron transfer is easy or fast, then we can call it as reversible electron transfer. And if the electron transfer rate is low or slow, then we can call it as irreversible electron transfer. In those cases, that means in irreversible electron transfer case, we need to apply external electrode potential to drive the process. And then we discussed about the peak potential and half wave potential. Peak potential means while we applying linear potential, at some point of potential it will give the maximum and minimum current. So these two potentials are called peak potentials, and these peak potential values cannot be shifted in reversible electron transfer process, but it will be shift for irreversible electron transfer with respect to the scan rate. And coming to the half wave potential, so it is the exactly half between the two peak potentials, that is EP1 and EP2, and this half wave potential can be denoted by E half. And then we discussed about peak current. So peak current means with respect to the baseline. Here we baseline is considered as the constant current before starting the wave. So with respect to the baseline, that means with respect to the constant current before starting the wave, we can consider as peak current. This peak current will be different from one wave to another wave due to the correction in baseline. And also we have half wave, half peak potential. And lastly, we discussed about diffusion limited current. So this is our today's lecture. If you have any queries, you can contact me. And in the next class, we will discuss about the present trending two-dimensional nanomaterials for supercapacitor applications. We will review the present available materials that we are using for supercapacitor applications, and we will discuss about the previous achievements and how can we overcome the hurdles in the performance of supercapacitor applications. Thank you.